There's a silence that exists before the world wakes. It's not empty. It's alive, breathing softly, like the earth holding its breath before the first light spills over the horizon. This is where every Stoic day begins, not with movement, but with awareness. Most people never notice this moment. The alarm rings, the mind ignites, the world rushes in before consciousness has even found its footing. Before a single thought is chosen, the noise has already chosen for them. Their hands reach for the phone, their hearts for distraction. And so the day begins, but not their day. It is the day of the world, dragging them forward like a tide that never rests. But the Stoic, he rises differently. He knows that the first few seconds after waking hold the shape of everything to come. So he doesn't reach outward, he turns inward. He breathes slowly, 3 deep breaths, each one a reminder, I am alive. I have been given another day. Not a promise, not a guarantee. A gift. The Stoic morning begins with presence, a conscious return to life. He doesn't rush to fill the silence, because he understands that silence is not absence. It is preparation. It is the sound of the mind resetting itself to truth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "At dawn, when you struggle to rise, remember, you have to go to work as a human being, not as an emperor, not as a philosopher, as a human being." To the Stoics, this moment, the awakening, was sacred. It was not about ritual, incense, or religion. It was about awareness, a small act of rebellion against the chaos of the world. Because when you open your eyes with intention, you reclaim your life before the world takes it. Marcus began his mornings in silence, often before the city stirred. The empire slept, but his mind was awake. He sat in stillness, breathing deeply, sharpening his thoughts like a sword. He reminded himself that the day would bring the arrogant, the ungrateful, the deceitful, but that none of them could harm him unless he allowed them to. That reflection wasn't cynicism. It was discipline. He trained his awareness not to be surprised by imperfection, but to expect it, meet it, and move through it with calm. He knew that if he began his day by mastering his mind, the world could not master him. That is the Stoic dawn. Victory before battle, clarity before noise. Seneca called the morning a philosopher's mirror. He said, "He who receives the day with gratitude has already begun it well." He believed every sunrise was an invitation to live with greater kindness, reason, and simplicity. He asked himself, what truly matters today? What kind of person will I be before this day ends? That's the question the world rarely asks, because it fears the answer. But the Stoic doesn't fear it. He welcomes it. He knows that the day will test his patience, his virtue, his peace, but that each test is an opportunity to practice philosophy in action. Gratitude becomes his armor, awareness his weapon, and self-command his shield. Before stepping into the noise, he studies the silence. He looks at the light, not just as illumination, but as metaphor. The sun doesn't rush. It rises slowly, steadily, without asking permission. That is how a Stoic enters the world, calm, deliberate, unmoved by hurry. The first light through the window touches his face, a reminder that time moves with or without him. He whispers to himself, I cannot control what happens today, but I can control how I respond. That single thought reshapes everything. Because the truth is, no day belongs entirely to us. The world will make demands, people will disappoint, plans will unravel. But between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space, a Stoic builds his strength. The mind that begins the day in awareness doesn't seek perfection. It seeks composure. It doesn't demand an easy morning. It chooses a meaningful one. Epictetus once said, when something happens, the first thing you must say is, I was expecting you. The Stoic knows this truth. He knows that by expecting difficulty, he robs it of surprise. By greeting adversity with calm, he transforms it into a teacher. So he prepares, not his schedule, but his soul. He fortifies his mind not with caffeine, but with clarity. Each thought becomes a discipline. Each breath, a training ground for patience. This is the unseen ritual of the Stoic, the quiet acceptance of what is and the readiness for what will be. He knows that peace is not found in avoiding storms, but in standing still while they pass. So when he finally rises from the bed, he doesn't leap, he stands. He feels the ground beneath his feet, the air entering his lungs, the pulse of life moving through him. And he understands this is enough. He doesn't chase the morning. He receives it. He doesn't rush into the day. He enters it. And as the world begins its endless race, he moves through it with the grace of a man who has already won his first battle, the battle with himself. For him, the dawn is not a beginning. It's a remembrance. A remembrance that every sunrise is not just light returning to the world, it's the mind returning to itself. And when the sun finally breaks the horizon, the Stoic smiles softly. Because he knows, if he can master the morning, he can master the day. And if he can master the day, he can master his life. Before the empire awoke, he was already awake. Long before the marble halls filled with voices, before the petitions and soldiers, before Rome demanded its emperor, Marcus Aurelius sat alone. The world called him ruler of men, but in the quiet hours before dawn, he ruled only one thing, his mind. He sat by the dim light of an oil lamp, the scent of wax and ink hanging in the air. Outside, the wind whispered through stone corridors. Inside, a man wrestled not with enemies, but with himself. He wrote not for history, but for discipline. Each word in Meditations was a reminder, a conversation between his higher self and the self still tempted by pride, anger, and desire. His journal was not a monument to power, but a map back to peace. Marcus understood a truth that few in power ever grasped. The louder the world becomes, the quieter a man must be within. Because every day, he faced the same noise that we do, distractions, flattery, betrayal, the endless theater of other people's opinions. But while others were pulled by the noise, he anchored himself in stillness. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I shall meet the busybody, the ungrateful, the deceitful, the arrogant, but I will not be harmed by them, for we are made to work together." This was not cynicism, it was compassion guided by realism. He wasn't preparing for battle against others, but against his own reactions to them. Most men seek control over the world. Marcus sought control over his judgments. He could not stop the arrogance of others, but he could stop arrogance from entering his own heart. He could not silence deceit, but he could choose not to echo it. That is the essence of Stoic mastery, not the conquest of circumstance, but the governance of self. In that dimly lit room, the emperor trained like a soldier. But his battlefield was invisible, the inner landscape of emotion, ego, and impulse. Each morning, he rehearsed the same sacred ritual, to expect imperfection and to remain unshaken by it. He knew that a mind unprepared for reality would be enslaved by it. So he met the day before it began. He imagined the criticisms, the delays, the disappointments, and accepted them all in advance. He would not be surprised by the cruelty of the world, nor discouraged by its ignorance. Instead, he would greet both with calm understanding. To Marcus, this was not pessimism. It was love, love of truth, love of reason, love of life as it is. Because to love life only when it pleases you is not love. It is dependency. And the Stoic rejects dependency. He does not wait for the world to be kind before he chooses kindness. He does not wait for peace to arrive before he becomes peaceful. He creates it, here within, before the day begins. Marcus once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." To him, every obstacle was a teacher. Every insult, an invitation to patience. Every difficulty, a mirror reflecting the state of his own soul. When others cursed the day, he used it. When others were ruled by reaction, he ruled through restraint. He understood that to be still is not to be passive. It is to move from strength rather than impulse. Imagine him there, the most powerful man in the world, seated in silence. No crown, no guards, no audience. Only a man, a pen, and the pulse of thought. Outside, empires rose and fell. Inside, he built a kingdom no time could conquer. That is the emperor's stillness. Because what use is ruling nations if you cannot rule your mind? What value has command if your emotions command you? Marcus knew that anger was easy, but control was power. That victory over others was temporary, but victory over the self was eternal. He practiced humility like a craftsman. Every morning, he reminded himself that he was a servant of nature, not its master. He wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." To most, those words would sound bleak. But to Marcus, they were freedom. Because when you remember how small you are, you stop pretending to be infinite. And when you stop pretending, you begin to live truthfully. His stillness wasn't indifference. It was understanding. It came from seeing the world as it is, transient, imperfect, but beautiful in its impermanence. He knew that to chase certainty was to suffer endlessly, but to accept transience was to find peace. So each dawn, he sat quietly, not escaping life, but entering it more completely than anyone else could. In that silence, he found his true throne, not the marble seat of the empire, but the calm center of his being. There, he ruled without force, without fear, without the need to prove. That is the Stoic paradox. The man who conquers himself needs no empire to feel complete. And perhaps that is why his words still live, long after the marble of Rome has crumbled. Because what he built was not a dynasty, but a discipline. Not monuments of stone, but monuments of mind. When you rise tomorrow, remember Marcus. Before you enter the noise of the day, enter the quiet of yourself. Don't ask for the world to bend to your will. Ask only for the strength to remain steady when it doesn't, because true power does not announce itself. It sits quietly, like an emperor before dawn, ruling only what truly matters. There are two kinds of awakening in this world. The first is of the body, when the eyes open and light returns. The second is of the soul, when the mind remembers that light itself is a gift. Seneca lived not in palaces, but in reflection. His wealth was not gold, but clarity. Each morning, before Rome stirred, he would sit by the open window and let the dawn speak. The world did not owe him this sunrise, yet it arrived anyway, soft, unasked for, undeserved. And that, he said, is the first miracle of every day, to receive what you did not earn, and to be grateful without demand. He wrote, "He who receives the day with gratitude has already begun it well." To Seneca, gratitude was not emotion, it was perception. It was the art of seeing clearly what most overlook. Where others complained of the cold, he saw the breath that still filled their lungs. Where others cursed the noise of life, he heard proof that they were still part of it. Where others longed for more, he marveled that anything existed at all. He understood that abundance is not measured by what you possess, but by how deeply you can notice. The ungrateful man lives in scarcity, even among riches, because he has lost the ability to see the ordinary as extraordinary. But the grateful mind transforms even the smallest moment, a sip of water, a quiet breath, into gold. Every morning, Seneca began his day not by asking, "What do I lack?" but by asking, "What remains?" He would list, silently, the invisible blessings of being alive. I can think, I can act, I can learn, I can love. I can still become better. Gratitude for him was not a ritual. It was resistance, a way of refusing to let the world convince him that peace required more. In a society obsessed with excess, He practiced the discipline of enough. He warned, "It is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it." He saw that time, not wealth, is the only true currency. And those who spend it chasing what they already have become bankrupt in spirit long before they die. So each dawn, he counted not coins, but moments. He measured his fortune not by possessions, but by peace. To the Stoics, gratitude is not weakness. It is a form of strength, because only the man who needs nothing can be moved by everything. Seneca looked at the rising sun and thought of death, not with fear, but with reverence. He knew that every sunrise was one fewer left to see. But instead of sadness, that awareness sharpened his joy. The finite makes the moment luminous. The temporary makes beauty burn brighter. He wrote in one of his letters, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life." What if this day were your last sunrise? Would you rush through it, still hungry for more? Or would you stop, breathe, and finally see how much was already yours without asking? Seneca's gratitude was not naive. He knew pain, betrayal, loss. He had seen fortune rise and vanish like smoke. But through it all, he remained still, because his peace was not built on what could be taken away. He had learned the great paradox of Stoicism, that to lose everything external is to discover everything internal. The grateful man does not deny suffering. He simply refuses to let it define the whole story. For every sorrow he finds a lesson. For every loss, a space for new growth. For every moment of darkness, a reason to value light. And so his mornings became sacred, not because they were perfect, but because they were honest. The world could be cruel, unpredictable, unjust, but the morning was always an invitation to begin again. He would sit in silence and ask himself, what truly matters today? Not what will I gain, not who will notice me, but what kind of person will I choose to be? That question became his compass. Each decision, each word, each act of patience was his way of honoring the day he had been given. Gratitude to Seneca was not passive acceptance. It was active reverence, a quiet bow before existence itself. He saw the divine not in temples or ceremonies, but in the breath of every living thing, in the rhythm of the sun rising. In the fact that the universe, against all odds, had chosen to let him wake once more. He knew that envy fades where gratitude begins, that the mind cannot serve two masters, desire and peace. He chose peace, not because it was easy, but because it was true. And this is the Stoic secret. When you begin your morning with gratitude, the world cannot shake you, because you have already made peace with it. The ungrateful man wakes into battle. The grateful man wakes into harmony. Seneca's mornings were not quiet escapes from the world. They were acts of alignment with it. He did not rise to conquer life, but to cooperate with it. To see what is, to accept what will be, and to cherish what has always been there. The breath, the light, the moment. He understood that gratitude is not a reaction to joy. It is the cause of it. Happiness follows gratitude like the dawn follows the night. And so, when he rose each day, he was not seeking more. He was returning to presence, to stillness, to the simple truth that being alive was enough. In the quiet of the morning, there's a different kind of strength, one that does not roar, does not strike, but simply stands still. This is the strength Epictetus lived by. Born a slave, crippled, denied power, he possessed the one freedom that cannot be chained, the freedom of the mind. While others sharpened swords, he sharpened perception. While others sought control over people, he sought control over thought. He taught his students, when something happens, the first thing you must say is, "I was expecting you." For Epictetus, the world was not an enemy. It was a teacher that spoke through difficulty. Pain, loss, betrayal. These were not punishments, but lessons written in the language of life. He would tell his students, "Do not wish for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will flow in harmony. This, he said, is the secret armor of the Stoic, the mind prepared before the battle begins. Because no storm destroys a man who has already accepted the wind. Each dawn, Epictetus would remind his followers that life's blows are not optional, only their impact is. He would hold up his staff and say, "This," tapping his chest, "is the shield that never breaks." He didn't mean pride. He meant perspective. For him, the shield of the mind was built from three things: expectation, discipline, and acceptance. Expectation is the first layer. He believed that surprise is the seed of suffering. If you expect the world to be kind, you will live in constant disappointment. But if you expect reality to be reality, harsh, beautiful, unpredictable, you will meet it with calm understanding. He said, "An undisciplined mind hopes. A disciplined mind prepares." So the Stoic wakes not to control the day, but to meet it as it comes as it is. Discipline is the second layer. For Epictetus, philosophy was not theory. It was training. Each irritation, each temptation, each moment of anger or fear was an opportunity to exercise mastery. He often told his students, "When someone insults you, remember, it is not you they harm, but their own understanding." The Stoic, he said, must learn to pause, to place thought between stimulus and reaction. Because in that pause lies choice, and in choice lies freedom. Freedom is not the absence of hardship. It is the absence of compulsion. It is the power to remain yourself, even when the world shakes you. That is why he taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." He trained his mind not to run from discomfort, but to walk calmly through it, as a soldier walks through fire, trusting the shield he has built through repetition. Acceptance is the final layer, the one most feared and yet most liberating. To accept life as it comes is not to surrender, but to stop fighting what already is. Epictetus said, "Remember that you are an actor in a play. You cannot choose the role, but you can choose how well you perform it." Some are given short roles, others long ones. Some filled with joy, others with pain. But the wise man does not complain about the script, he perfects the performance. He knew that peace does not come from changing life, but from changing the way we meet it. The world is not cruel, it is indifferent. And in that indifference lies our opportunity, to give meaning where none was given, to bring virtue where chaos reigns. Epictetus often compared the mind to a fortress. The enemy cannot harm you unless you open the gates. Insults, misfortune, failure, they only enter when you invite them in. He said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things." So he taught his students to guard their thoughts as soldiers guard the walls. To let no careless idea become an intruder. To question every emotion before it takes command. The mind, he said, is both your master and your servant. If left untamed, it enslaves you. If trained, it protects you. That is the essence of the shield of the mind. Imagine him, the old philosopher, once a slave, standing before his students with a limp, yet radiating a calm so steady it silenced a room. He spoke without grandeur, without anger, without pride. Because he had nothing left to prove, only something to pass on. That strength is not noise, but stillness refined by truth. To those who asked how to become unshakable, he answered, "By refusing to be moved by what you cannot control." To those who asked how to stay calm in loss, he said, "When something is taken, remember, it was only ever borrowed." He reminded them, "You are not the owner of what you love. You are the steward of it." And that is the foundation of the Stoic shield, to hold everything lightly, even your own life. When you hold nothing too tightly, you fear no loss. When you need nothing, you can face everything. At dawn, Epictetus would look at the horizon and whisper, "I do not ask for an easy day. I ask for the strength to meet whatever comes." That prayer was not submission. It was sovereignty, the quiet rule of a man who no longer needs the world to bend for him. And perhaps that is the true freedom all men seek, not the power to command others, but the power to remain whole within themselves. That is the legacy of Epictetus, the slave who became untouchable, the man who had nothing but lacked nothing, the philosopher who taught the art of standing firm when everything else falls. When the world stirs awake, noise returns. Doors slam, horns echo, the rhythm of haste begins again. But the Stoic, the one who has watched the dawn in silence, does not rush to join the noise. He rises not with the world, but within himself. This is the return. Not to distraction, but to presence. Not to control, but to balance. Marcus prepared the mind. Seneca filled it with gratitude. Epictetus armored it with discipline. Now comes the moment to return, to walk back into the storm with calm eyes and a steady breath. The Stoic does not escape life. He enters it differently. He steps into the marketplace, into the noise of opinions, the theater of vanity, the endless conversation of human desire. And yet within him, a quiet space remains untouched. He speaks little, but listens deeply. He acts simply, but intentionally. He meets anger with calm and praise with humility. Because he knows, the measure of a man is not how he moves in peace, but how he remains in chaos. Equanimity, the stillness of the soul, is not indifference. It is mastery. It is the art of standing in the center of all opposites without being torn apart by either. The Stoic does not suppress emotion, he refines it. He does not flee from pain. He transforms it into wisdom. He does not deny joy. He deepens it through awareness. In the letters of Seneca, there is a line few remember. A great mind is neither lifted up by fortune, nor cast down by fate. This is equanimity, to walk through gain and loss with the same steady rhythm of breath. To the ordinary man, balance seems dull. He craves the highs, fears the lows. But to the Stoic, balance is divine. It is the point where the soul and the cosmos move as one. Marcus wrote, "To live in agreement with nature is the highest virtue, and nature, he knew, is never hurried. It does not fight the rain. It does not resist the cold. It simply moves, slowly, wisely, unshaken. So too does the mind trained by philosophy. It no longer demands the world to change. It changes itself to meet the world." At noon, when the city roars and tempers flare, the Stoic remembers his morning. He recalls the breath that began his day, the quiet promise he made before the sun. He does not need reminders carved in stone. His memory of peace has become instinct. It moves through him like an invisible current, guiding his tone, his eyes, his pace. And when conflict arises, as it always does, he smiles faintly because he knows it is not his to own. It is merely the play of human nature, and his role is to observe without absorbing. There comes a moment in every philosopher's day when understanding turns into being. The teachings of Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus are no longer verses. They are pulse and breath. He no longer remembers to be calm. He simply is. The practice dissolves into presence. The lessons merge with living. He walks slowly through the crowd, not detached but awake. Every sound becomes a note in a greater harmony. Every face becomes a reminder of shared struggle. Every hardship, a mirror for compassion. The world, once a battlefield, has become a classroom. And he, once a student, has become the lesson. As the sun descends again, he returns to the same quiet he began with. Not to escape the day, but to honor it. He looks back, not with regret, but with recognition. The storms he met were his training, the challenges his teachers. He whispers, "I have not conquered the world. I have understood it." He does not celebrate victories, for he no longer fights. He does not mourn endings, for he sees the rhythm beneath them. And as darkness settles, he knows he has returned home, not to a place, but to a state of mind, equanimity. Equanimity is not a destination. It is the return after every fall, the calm after every storm, the breath that remains when all else fades. It is the soft glow after understanding, the stillness that follows truth. It is what the Stoics lived for, not fame, not wealth, not even wisdom, but alignment. To live in harmony with nature, to act with reason, to feel without losing oneself, to love without clinging, to walk through the day as a quiet force of peace. That is the return to equanimity. That is the Stoic morning.